Okay, so our last panel of the day is focusing on a report from the Heirloom Cacao project and some findings in the world of heirloom cacao. If you're not familiar with what heirloom cacao is, heirloom anything, whether it's heirloom tomatoes, heirloom corn or maize, they're ancient seeds. They're seeds that have not been genetically altered. They're seeds that are natural to their environment, indigenous seeds that are being grown and harvested and respecting their history. They have a unique flavor profile as well. So heirloom cacao from different regions of the world is a really wonderful version of cacao because it's unlike anything else wherever you're sourcing it. So I will bring on the host for the HCP report panel, and I would like to introduce you. John Kehoe, are you there? If you're there, you can go ahead and turn on your mic and your camera.
I'm here.
Hey, there you are. Hi, John.
Hi, and it worked.
Yes, we got you on.
Great.
So thank you so much for joining us. John is from Guittard Chocolate, and he is going to be hosting this panel, and he will intro the panelists. I'm going to hand it over to you so that you can bring it on. Lambert and Anne, you can go ahead and turn on your cameras and turn on your microphones. I see Lambert. Hi. Nice to see you.
Same here.
And do we have Anne? Oh, there she is. Oh, good. Hi, Anne. Thank you so much, you guys, for making it today. It's an honor to have you on. And I will now place you in the capable hands of John, and he will take it away.
Great. Thanks very much, Regina. And thanks,
you.
Lambert. And you're welcome. Thanks, Lambert and Anne. Great to see you. The technology's worked so far. Knock on wood. We got our backgrounds all working. So thanks to the organizers for including HCP and allowing me to moderate this panel and help present this important work. And thanks to all the attendees who have stayed on. The attendance of the Cacao and Chocolate Summit is incredible. Every year from across the globe, and producers, processors, civil society. It's really incredible. So kudos to all, and thanks for sticking with us. And I'd just like to start off, introduce Anne Zaczek, who's our Executive Director of the Heirloom Cacao Preservation Fund. And then we'll introduce Lambert and dive right into the material. So Anne, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi. Thanks, John. Do you want me to just give an introduction of myself for this piece?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, a little bit about yourself, HCP.
My name is Anne Zaczek. I've been working with HCP for the past almost 4 years now. I have a history in international development work, and it's been really enlightening to be able to work with industry members from all aspects of the industry and learn about all the challenges and that come along with cacao farming. So, anyways, looking forward to diving into this.
Great, thank you, Anne. And I'll just add to that. Anne's done a fantastic job, raising the level of Heirloom Cacao Project HCP from a volunteer organization. Really, just everyone trying to make an effort to make a difference for cocoa farmers and save and identify heirloom cacao to a real professional organization doing really important work and grant work across the globe. So thank you, Anne. And Lambert Motilal, I get the chance to introduce you very briefly. Can add to that. We're thrilled to have you on the panel and for the work that you've done. Lambert's a researcher at the Cocoa Research Center in Trinidad, and has just the CRC, if you will, has also been just a tremendous resource to HCP across the years, with Darren Suka being an advisor on the advisory board to HCP. And Lambert, we've also collaborated on other parts of HCP's work with looking at the genetics of some of the material for for propagation decisions around heirloom cacao. So thanks for your support, and go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll get our discussion going. Lambert, we lost your camera. There you go.
Yeah, thanks, John. I pressed the space bar and it went to the video instead. So
the other button.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for HCP and FCIA. Jenny, thanks for this wonderful platform. The sessions yesterday and today were quite amazing. You know, I see a huge interest, a lot of discussion going on, right? And we hope that this report from HCP, what you'll see just now, will add on to your knowledge and help move your industry forward.
Great, thank you, Lambert. I guess I'll take a moment to just introduce myself as well. As you can see, my name is John Kehoe. I'm the Director of Sustainability at Guittard Chocolate, and again, it's an honor for me to moderate the panel here. And as we dive into this, I'd like to say really the work that Lambert's put together with the support of a number of other researchers is really a magnum opus. It's a tremendous piece of work with, I think, great value for the whole cocoa sector, with farmers and chocolate makers, growers, to really understand either the genetics in their country, how they were brought in, and kind of the history there, to understand better the opportunities and as well as the responsibilities to preserve and identify and strengthen the genetic diversity of cacao. So it's super important, something that has been a passion and a commitment of Guittard Chocolate and Gary Guittard personally. So Lambert, thank you for this really important work, and I'm sure it'll be great value and interest to all those in attendance today and well beyond that into the cocoa sector. So thanks, and I'll step back and allow, I guess, Anne, are you going to start with a bit more background on HCP, and then we'll move into Lambert's report.
Yeah, thanks, John. If you bear with me, we're going to be a slightly different presentation than others. We do have, I did not have, can I have approval to share my screen? If they give approval, we do have a presentation. Since it is a report, it's incredibly detailed, and it has images and graphics that are really important to be able to share for Lambert's portion. So just let me know if and when that's enabled, and I'll move forward on my piece. So my piece is what is the Heirloom Cacao Preservation Fund, and introduce it to those of you who do not know who we are and don't know our background, and then lead you into what is the meat of the presentation, which is from Lambert on specifically what the report that HCP had conducted. I'm also going to try to slow down because I speak fast, and I apologize for the translators. So who is HCP? Why did we conduct this work? The HCP was launched in 2012. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we are committed to improving the lives of cacao farmers and their families. And we are working to protect the world's threatened supply of high-quality, flavorful chocolate. We encourage ethical cacao farming practices and actively support farmers at origin. Our mission is to discover, identify, and preserve fine flavor heirloom cacao varieties for the conservation of biological diversity and empowerment of farming communities. The preservation of, I feel like I'm speaking to the audience here that already knows this, but the preservation, we believe the preservation of the finest chocolate is all about cacao sustainability, ensuring the survival of exceptional cacao biodiversity, safeguards, which safeguards the future of the industry and assists economic, social, and environmental benefits to the farmers and their communities.
And I am so sorry to interrupt, but there
No
is
worries.
a lot of echo in your voice. I don't know if it's a matter of your microphone. I don't know if
Maybe.
Could we try another option, please? For
Sorry.
interpretation purposes.
I was trying headphones. Is that better?
Can you speak a little more so I can...
Can you hear me now?
I think it's a little better. Let me try.
It sounds pretty good. And the technical department is also trying to open up your ability to share screen. So
Great.
you're doing great.
Apologies.
No problem.
No, I was trying headphones. Apologies, the headphones didn't work properly. So hopefully we got the beginning. We proudly, as HCP, we prevent and protect against deforestation. We defend against economic influences threatening the world's supply of high-quality, flavorful cacao. We recognize endangered cacao and collaborate with the cacao farmers and enhance the livelihood of cacao farming communities worldwide. And we, lastly, which leads right into our mission and what we're going to talk about today, we identify and map the world's finest cacao and its growers in our system called designation. So I can share my screen now, so I will do that. And so can you see that now? Good. Okay. So, as I said, designation. What is designation? This designation is our way of identifying the heirloom cacao. We identify heirloom cacao and designate those farmers through what we call our bean submission process. Farmers from around the world submit an application through our website and submit bean samples to our lab. There's absolutely no cost to submission beyond the cost of shipping the beans to the lab. The samples are then received at our lab, which is hosted by Guittard Chocolate, and we anonymously and uniformly process those beans and process them into chocolate and liqueur, and we send those samples out to our international tasting panel for analysis. The International Tasting Panel is made up of 9 members. They have, I think, combined over 250 years of experience in chocolate tasting. And honestly, that is old information. So I bet you it's closer to reaching 300 years combined. But they conduct their analysis, and it's up to them to determine if the submission is deemed heirloom. And then if it is deemed heirloom, we have the genetics processed by USDA ARS, and a site visit is conducted to confirm the heirloom designation. Our designees currently we have 16 designees from around the world. That includes Central America, South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. These designees are made up of single estates, smallholder farmers, research farms, smallholder networks, and wild harvesting. So it is an array of formats. And overall, they represent 3,080 cacao farmers, small farmers from 10 countries. Our programs, as a nonprofit organization, we apply for grant funding to support our programming efforts. And one aspect of this, or one version of this, is working with our designated farmers on the ground to establish nurseries, colonial gardens, and providing technical assistance at all levels of production, of the production process. We work with them scaling up their production to establish commercial viability and support them in preserving their heirloom cacao for the generations to come. So an example of this is, these images are a cacao block from the Belize Foundation for Research and Environmental Education. One on the left was taken in 2021, and the other one was taken in 2022. And we've been working with them in creating a nursery. We supported their development of a nursery and with post-harvest processing, and as well as some other, obviously, other small ways throughout the years. And so that's one aspect, is preservation aspect. One aspect of our programs is the preservation aspect of working with our farmers in preserving, but then another is with the discovery effort, which I would like to we'll be diving into a little bit more with Lambert's report. But I would like to currently throw it to John, because he's going to talk about our next program, the Ciro Alliance, another program of HCP's.
Great, thanks, Anne. And yes, I think this is important to help understand the context and reach of HCP. Through combined efforts with FCIA, and we've partnered with USAID Madagascar and USAID in a Global Development Alliance partnership to support biodiversity in Madagascar. It's really an incredible partnership. I've been involved in a number of USAID and USDA and other grant work. What was particularly exciting about this is how it came together in the co-creation process, which literally took a year. But it was just really working together among all the partners to develop something that really made sense and has some great impact for farmers. And through the Ciro Alliance, and Ciro, I have to see exactly what my notes here. I know Ciro means flavor in Malagasy, which is really cool. But it's the bear with me for a second. Sorry. Get my notes together. Yeah, I apologize. I blew my notes. The moderator is a terrible presenter. But in any case, Ciro's a collection of these partners. You see here, it's USAID funded, implemented by the Catholic Relief Services, which has a long history of development work in Madagascar, and really professional organization. And the partners Beyond Good, who's doing really some incredible work with the Bristol Zoo and biodiversity, and Atkinson's Organic, as many of you might know, and another company called Sahanala, which is a spice company. And what's really cool about this is we've heard all throughout the 2 days, the importance of farmer incomes and income diversity, and how that is all related to deforestation and so many other challenges, including child labor. But through Ciro, and what really got us interested and excited was the combination of cocoa and agroforestry with spice production. And that could be pepper or other vanilla, even other spices that are grown and well marketed globally from Madagascar. It's really giving these farmers an opportunity to have diverse incomes, diverse cash flows, and more income. That really gives them the ability to continue to develop and maintain agroforestry systems that are profitable and provide good livelihoods for their families, and not encroach on the forests and protect forests that they have. And so it really is pretty neat. One of the things we're doing together with Atkinson's is building a vocational training center in Ambanja, on one of Bertil Atkinson's farms, right near the road, right near Ambanja. to help the social components of this, because we all love Madagascar cocoa, many in the fine chocolate industry, and it's also one of the poorest places in the southern hemisphere, and deforested. So there's a lot of issues around Madagascar, and cocoa is a bright spot in Madagascar, but people are still very poor and under educational and health challenges. So by building a vocational training center, we hope to be able to help the livelihood aspects, focusing on, again, using some of the income diversification in nutrition. How can they use some of the other things that they can grow to have better nutrition? Village savings and loans, or Catholic Relief Services version of microfinancing, microlending among the communities to really help these people in their livelihoods in and around and beyond cocoa. So we're particularly excited about it, and we'll continue to inform the whole sector on CIRO's work, as will FCIA, really, who's doing a great job on the media and communication side of CIRO. So with that, hand it back over, and again, proud to be a part of it, and part of HCP and FCIA in this work. Thanks.
Thanks, John. So this leads into why we're really here, Lambert's report. And I want to give, before Lambert goes in, I want to give kind of a background of why HCP even came up with why we had this report conducted. While as I talked about the identification of designees, while we are always actively accepting submissions from farmers around the world, in 2020 we decided as an organization to take that a step further and add the word discover into our mission. And the reason for that is so that it's us saying that we are going to be taking an active role in rediscovering rare relic cacao for future preservation efforts, not just sitting back and waiting for submissions to come in. And hopefully through that, identifying some heirloom designees through this process. So adding Discover to our mission really expanded the programs beyond what we started with, which was mainly some nursery work and obviously post-process harvesting work. And so we one of those first things that came to actually the president of the organization, he kind of conceived this this as a whole, was conducting this review, which it's Lambert's review of cacao explorations and germplasm movements. And Lambert's here to give, like I said, an overview of the report, but this report is really, in our program as a whole, this report is phase one. We have 3 phases. This first phase 1 is a report, it's a comprehensive report, and Lambert went beyond what we ever expected this report to be. I mean, when we started this, what was it, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago? No, a year and a half ago with Lambert. We were expecting maybe like a 20, 30-page report, and Lambert has done an incredible amount of work, has come up with something incredible. It's almost 250 pages long, and it's going to be translated into, we're in the final stages of it, but it's translated into English, French, and Spanish. And my summary of it, which Lambert may say is different, but my summary is it's a comprehensive report compiling all known information on the subject of cacao explorations and germplasm movements over history. He and his team of interns conducted a literature review of historical and contemporary documents on cacao genetics and discovery efforts, and a survey of key experts was undertaken to outline where cacao discovery expeditions have taken place and where future collections should be focused. So our objective as HTP with this report was to identify where there are gaps in research and expeditions, and which will lead us into what we call phase 2 of this program, the expedition phase, where we as an organization will be selecting a few locations to which are identified in the research, break down the research and identify a few locations to conduct a few of our own expeditions starting later this year. So that will then lead into phase 3, which we obviously can't conduct expeditions to everywhere that's identified in this report, and creating a roadmap for future exploration. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lambert Motilal, to tell you about this amazing piece of work.
Thanks, Anne. So just like Anne, I normally speak rather quickly. And of course, you have the Trinidadian accent to contend with. So I'll try to be a little slower than normal, right? So like Anne said, this report was a joint effort. And we had several people on the team. We had Lisa and Anne-Sophie from France, Caitlin from the States, Mariella from Costa Rica, Leonardo from Belize, and Rena and myself from Trinidad, right? So you're a team of 7 of us. Oh, sorry, I'm clicking on. Can you move forward? Right. So I have to tell Anne next to know when to advance, because I tried to advance just now, it didn't work. All right, cool. So like we said, seven of us decided we would, with HCP, hired help to search and combine all information that we could lay our hands on to get a better idea of how cocoa moves around the world, right? And there are bits and pieces, and it's been treated before, as some of you would know, but never in such a comprehensive way, right? Especially the more recent studies and research and across the different countries using the internet. So we surveyed 51 experts. We had feedback from 59 people. We saw about 541 publications covering 64 countries, right? And the report is sort of based on historical and modern articles from books, journal articles, internet sites. We did an online survey, and of course, we got feedback from our key experts. Right, so can we go on to the other slide? So the 64 countries is distributed across the cocoa growing world, right? From North America, Central America, South America, Caribbean, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. Okay, so we will not be able to treat all the regions or all the countries in this talk. I will leave it up to yourself with HCP Good Help to be able to access the report in some way or fashion. And in this presentation, we will look to focus on 3 regions: Oceania, Africa, and the Americas, and do 1 country from each. Can we go on to the other slide? Okay, so cocoa, as you know, the cocoa that we know and love that get chocolate, it comes from a particular group. That group name is Theobroma. And in the first session, the lady from Brazil, what's her name? Acelia, yeah. Acelia spoke about using a related species of cocoa, right? Cupuaçu, Theobroma grandiflora. So cocoa has these other members in this group, 21 other members. But the whole cocoa industry mainly is focused on Theobroma cacao, the cocoa that we know. And that cocoa as a group is subdivided into these genetic clusters, these populations that we call populations. So just like you have different types of or breeds of dogs, you can consider cocoa to be in the same sort of situation. We can group it in different categories. And these categories were established by a team led by Motomaya in 2008 using DNA markers. So they look at the DNA of the plants, the genetic material of plants, and look at particular points along the DNA chains and got different markers. And they use that genetic information to cluster the cocoa together in particular genetic groups, okay? And there were 10 of these groups. And you can see the names on screen. I'll call them out: Amelinado, Contamina, Curare, National, Criollo, Purus, Nani, Iquitos, Marmion, and Guyana. Okay? And they were collected and conserved in gene banks around the world. Most of them coming from South America, because that's where cocoa came from, right? South America and Central America. So what we find is that now that we have all this genetic wealth of cocoa, what does that mean for the cocoa industry? Well, the cocoa industry has different ways in which we class cocoa. So we class cocoa genetically in 10 populations. The industry says, okay, we can do bulk cocoa and fine cocoa. We can do origin cocoa, we can do craft cocoa, we can do final flavor cocoa, right? So HCP deals with this designation of origin or final flavor cocoa. And you would know that the bulk cocoa, the cocoa that makes up the West African sort of industry, is based on Amelinado cocoa. Final flavor cocoa is from these particular types that are special in where they grow, special in their genetic background, and sometimes they usually have a national or Criollo ancestry. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So this report gives us a sort of snapshot into the origin and ancestry of cocoa, its historic germplasm transfers, the impact of climate change and deforestation and diversity that you heard in the first day. And it is followed by country profiles. Then we have the survey responses and future prospecting. So that's how the report is structured. And the bulk of the report is the country profiles. And the country profiles, as an ideal case, is based on a section as an overview, a historical introduction, recent cultivation, genetic studies, highlighted cultivars, flavor or quality, and recommended collection. And I say in an ideal view because, this is the real world, not an ideal world, right? So in the ideal case, we'd have loved to get information for every single cocoa producing country under these headings, but that wasn't always possible, okay? So I wouldn't say it's a complete work, and we'd like to think it's as complete as possible, but hearing some of these speakers, the panelists, especially, what's his name? The guy from Tanzania. Oh, I forget now.
Simran?
Simran, yes, Simran from Tanzania, And he described going around Tanzania and mapping all the different farms. It would have been lovely to get that sort of information into this section on Tanzania. And I'm sure there's several areas where this gray literature that we could have searched through, because this gray literature is not always found. So it maybe becomes transparent literature, right? Not to be seen. But we need to share this sort of information around. So I would ask each person from different countries if you have particular historic information, unique information, local knowledge, indigenous knowledge related to cocoa in your country, share it with HCP so you can start amassing a sort of dossier on each country that you can use, right? Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay. So first, we will look at Philippines as a case example. And we heard from one of the farmers or entrepreneurs, big business lady in Philippines, about the cocoa that she does, right? So for the Philippines, the history is that the Spaniards moved cocoa from Mexico into the Philippines either in 1660 or 1860. And at that time, the cocoa that was moved was supposed to be Criollo. So they expected to be of a high Criollo ancestry. So Philippines then, if they've had few recent introductions of cocoa from anywhere else, has the potential to be a fine flavor, right? High flavor, beautiful flavor type cocoa. And as Sarah would know, and as some of you guys would know as well, who actually do the fermentation into chocolate, how you treat cocoa makes a difference, right? You could have a quality starting material, but because you treat with it improperly, you end up with something substandard. Yeah. So some varieties of cocoa can take very short days of fermentation. Some may be eaten directly straight from the bean with little bitterness, but most need to be fermented to bring out its full flavor profile. And of course, because in the market, different tastes or sensory experience can create different consumer markets. Okay, so whether we make the markets or the consumer make the markets, it's a dynamic situation. So right now, what we do know is that cocoa from the Philippines have placed in the cocoa of excellence with wonderful flavor profiles, right? So the potential is there. Now, Philippines, as you know, is many islands, okay? And it was hard to obtain information to know exactly on which islands the cocoa still exists, right? What is the sort of production areas, and where could cocoa still be grown or would be continued to be grown in the Philippines. So that sort of information as well needs to be documented and shared, either with the World Cocoa Foundation, because they started a huge library. I don't know if it's still available. Okay, and also with HCP, and of course with my home institution, Cocoa Research Center at UWI. I'm welcome to receive any sort of information on cocoa relating to production, genetic diversity, flavor, all aspects of cocoa, right? So these workers from the Philippines, Espino, presented some research at the International Symposium of Cocoa Research in Peru in 2017, where they shared that they visited about 10 areas, they collected 50 samples, and assessed them with 15 microsatellites. So these microsatellites are DNA markers, like I said, for Motomaya's group, right, where he did the 10 populations. So let's see now what was the sort of results that Espino found for Filipino cacao. And can we go on to the next slide? It didn't go yet. Right. Okay. So this represents one of the genetic outputs based on genetic distances. So it's a sort of family tree, a phylogenetic tree as it's called. You could just think of what is a cluster tree, because like items are clustered together, right? And what's important about this is that it shows that the true Criollos, the old Criollos that will move into the Philippines, and these are the Criollo green and Criollo red, really bunched together nicely with the authentic Criollo reference material, the Criollo 22 and 21, right? And you can see at the bottom of the figure is a Criollo 21 from a place in the Philippines called Nulit. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So it means that the Philippines has true, authentic Criollo, like really close to 100% Criollo material. And this represents a germplasm, a genetic resource that can be propagated and supplied to farmers who will be interested in managing their farms or having farms or fields with high Criollo material. So we have a situation where researchers can say, hey, look, this is high Criollo material, you can grow this. But we must always be careful, because each genetic group, each variety, each cultivar has its pluses and its minuses. So Criollo is really nice for flavor, but because it's a type that has a lot of inbreeding that went into its development, it's also susceptible to stress. So heat, diseases, right? And of course, in the Philippines, you have your cyclones coming across, so heavy winds is a problem, right? So growing a type of cocoa, recommending type of cocoa must be at the farmer's disposal, right? He or she must be given the information to decide, this is what I want. This is the farming system that I want to undergo. Do I take monoculture? Do I do quick farming? Do I do a mixed farming system? And these are the varieties I want to plant, okay? And the varieties that you want to plant will decide for you your market. It will decide for you the type of cocoa that you're selling. It will decide for you, okay, what I want to do, sell wet beans or sell dry beans. Do I sell to a dedicated buyer, or do I sell into a big company? Am I doing bulk cocoa or flavor cocoa? These are all the questions that need to be answered. And Sarah pointed to this when she said, you must know the why. Why are you getting into cocoa? What is it? But to know all the whys, you need the information around it. And the information around it should come from us, not just in the research centers, but us as the policymakers and us in government agencies and us in these institutions that have the leverage and the know-how to move this information across to all the different actors, especially people on the ground, who can then be better informed on the business decisions that they need to make to do their farming practices. Okay, so that's one aspect here. True Criollo in the Philippines. The other aspect is that you would see the rest of the diagram. There are the same name, right? So the same cultivar, and they're coming from different places. Okay, and if they're the same cultivar, they should all be exactly the same. So we shouldn't be seeing so many branch points. We shouldn't be seeing so many little groups. It should all be all the same, right? So if you look at the top, you would see my eyes are a little screwy, BR25, right? Okay, you see the first one, BR25 from Davao. And then there's two, right? There's two together. And two share a single line, a single vertical line. That means those two are identical. But all the others are not identical. And this goes across the board for the majority of the samples that supposedly bear the same name. So unfortunately, their cultivars' names, what has been distributed, is not really the same. But the advantage is that they have a greater genetic diversity than what might have been believed, right? So although it's focused around a sort of Trinitario background, like Charita said, the types of Trinitarios would be different, okay? And I would just like to say, not all Trinitarios are created the same. There will be those with a tendency towards higher flavor, right? And a tendency to those with lower flavor. The profile is different, okay? Let's go on to the other slide, please. So now we move across to Ghana in West Africa for a different germplasm movement altogether, completely different history. Now Madagascar, who lives off Africa, even though it's in the African geographic region, its historic movement is kind of different. It's really based on the Asian Oceania side, but that's where they got their cocoa from. Also Trinitario, but a beautiful Trinitario. I've always loved Madagascar chocolates, it's wonderful, right? But in Ghana, what happened was that in the early years, in 1757, they supposedly got Forastero cacao from Venezuela. So what is this Forastero? Forastero is just a sort of catch-all name for cocoa that was not what they considered to be Criollo, okay? So there was Criollo and there's Forastero. Criollo was the fine flavor. But based on Montemayor's work, we know that what we consider Forastero, which is really a sort of bad name now, is really all these other 9 groups of cocoa, right? So 9 groups plus Criollo makes 10 groups. So we don't know for sure if it's Trinitario, which is a mix of different groups, right? Or Amelanado came in the early years as Forastero from Venezuela. But we do know, from better historical records, that in 1861, Amelanado came in from Sao Tome and Principe, right? And then later on, and this is where the history gets a little murky, in 1875, 70 to 79, Amelanado cocoa from Fernando Po came in via Tete Kwashi, who was a Ghanaian native who was working in Fernando Po. When he went back home, he decided to carry some cocoa with him, planted the seeds, shared the seeds from his garden. Afterwards, I think they said he started selling fruits as well, right? And cocoa spread throughout Ghana from this small introduction. It is also believed that other Ghanaian smallholders returning to Ghana as well from different places where they worked in the surrounding countries would have brought Amelanado cocoa back with them, right? So the Portuguese would have moved Amelanado cocoa from Brazil, from South America, into Fernando Po and the different areas that they had. Okay, and this spread across the land. And then later on in the 1900s, Trinitario cocoa from Trinidad and Venezuela was brought into Ghana. And then later on in the 40s to 50s, in 1900 as well, hundreds of fruits from Upper Amazon varieties, okay, were brought into Ghana from Trinidad. Okay, so then there was a situation where initially it's a stock-based Amelinado population. And then we have these hybrids coming in. Hybrids from Trinidad, hybrids from Venezuela, based on Trinitario, and based on Upper Amazon. So what happened next? Can we go to the next slide? Right. So this is an overview map of Ghana showing the provinces and the cocoa growing regions, which is toward the lower end, towards the Atlantic Ocean, right? So you know Ghana is in West Africa, West African country, and the lower parts is closer to the ocean. So Opoku and his team in 2007 published this study, and it should hold as well today. So they sampled from across the regions with cocoa, all the regions with cocoa, and they sampled about 235 farm materials. They collected trees from the breeder gardens. They collected the parentas that they had at the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana. And they assessed this material with 17 microsatellites, the same marker system that Motomaya used to show that cocoa fell into 10 groups. Can we go to the next slide, please? And we would see his results. Sorry, their results. So this is the same sort of cluster tree showing how the germplasm material is sorted, classified, grouped with their relatedness, okay? And you would notice that the central region, Ashanti and Volta, are all the same in terms of the genetic background. Of course, each individual tree can be different, but in general, they show a common pool, and that common pool is similar, right, for those three regions. The eastern is a little more related to them than all the others. But you notice after the eastern region is Upper Amazon. So all this farm material, instead of having purely Amelinado material, now has some influence by the Upper Amazon hybrids that were brought in. Okay? So that shows a change over from Amelinado type cocoa to Amelinado hybrids, or Amelinado Upper Amazon hybrids, or Upper Amazon by Upper Amazon hybrids. If we look down at the end, you would see 4 and 5. These were the groups that they had in their paper, right? You see Aburi Gardens and Tetekwashi. So this is the botanical gardens, and allegedly, I'm not sure, allegedly, I take it as the truth, that is the same farm that Tetekwashi had, or the same farmed area, right? And this area is where the first introductions of cocoa occurred. So this is the real more Amelinado stock material. So then what we see in here is that all the other farm material is different from this original material. So all the other farm material is based more now on hybrid material, hybrid cultivars, brought in, developed, and dispensed by the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana in moving the industry forward, right? And you see brown ahafo on the hybrid, and also with local Amelinado and Trinitario. So the most of the farms in Ghana has now, aside from Amelinado, hybrid mixture from Upper Amazon parents and Trinitario parents. And it's believed that the sort of red fruits or red fruited trees they see in Ghana is from ones that were brought in from Cameroon and came in from particular Trinitario varieties. Okay? And remember I said, not all Trinitarios are created equal. So is it a function of the conditions, environmental conditions in Ghana, that you do not have fine flavor cocoa? Or is it that the type of Trinitario makes a difference? Can we grow fine flavor cocoa in Ghana? And of course, maybe if you have the same and I think John's group has been doing something along this line. If you're bringing the same type germplasm and you're establishing the same environmental conditions that Ghana can have in the same sort of tropical belt as South America, can we therefore get fine flavor cocoa, right? Given good fermentation practices. So that's something to be seen. I look forward to those results. Okay, can we move on to the next slide? Right. So now we come across the Atlantic. So we move across from the Philippines in the Far East. We hit Africa in the middle, and we come across now to South America, which is the homeland for cocoa, right? The homeland for cocoa. So in the early years, the indigenous peoples would have moved cocoa around as they saw fit, as was best fitting for themselves. Use whichever types they prefer, whether it was the seed that they consume, the pulp that they taste and they like. So they went for white-seeded fruits that are less bitter, Criollo, Porcelana. They went for pulpy fruits, they went for big fruits, they went for colored fruits, whatever was the situation, right? They moved it around. That was in very early years, before the Aztecs came along and had, or maybe before, and they had the cocoa beans as currency, right? And they were using that as well. So no matter what, there was some sort of farming system going on, whether it was just a direct use from the forests, or taking the cocoa and moving it around and planting it as needed around or near the villages, right? So in any event, based on the genetic diversity that we see, we know that there's a focal point in South America where this center of genetic diversity is located then, right? And that takes up right now, geographically, a part of Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, okay? So let's move on to the other slide. So this is Peru, geographic outlines, the different regions, okay? So let us see what is the situation for Peru now. So Peru has its wild material, its semi-wild material in the forest, on farm, indigenous communities, use cocoa from around the areas, but also cocoa was introduced into Peru. Okay, so you have Peru, the home country of cocoa, like Ecuador, like Colombia, importing cocoa again. So what varieties did they import? Some foreign clones came in, the UF, which is the United Fruit, the ICS from Trinidad, and ET, which was a sort of mixed group of germplasm, right, in the 1950s. And then in the 2000s, or the early 2000s, CCN51 was brought in. And of course, this is a decision. Let's call it a policy decision, right? You have the potential for Peru to be a fine flavor, origin, market, organic market, whichever one you want to use. CCN51 comes in. You cannot be a fine flavor, 100% fine or flavor producing country again. So I believe was it in 2020, the ICCO positioned Peru as a 75% producer of final flavor cocoa, right? And of course, each country has to make its own decision. Do I use CCN51, which is highly productive because it's self-compatible, because it can set fruit for itself. It has some good disease resistance, right? But the flavor is not as much as it should be. So maybe I don't always classify it as a fine flavor type or flavor type commodity. And of course, flavor preferences will change. And there was a discussion about the flavor wheel and the taste sensations and to make it standardized. Okay. So if, for example, CCN51 becomes a flavor category, then Peru can become 100% flavor group, right? But right now it's 75% because of this addition of exotic germplasm, let us say, right? And, we have to sort of guard or always bear this in mind. At the end of the day, it's the farmer that makes the decision. What do I want to grow? Am I going to grow something so I can get money to provide for my family, to provide for myself, right? And therefore, you tell me to do fine flavor, but that's a lot of work. And organic cocoa, well, that's a nice amount of work in it as well to maintain your organic status, right? And to be certified. So I'll just go with this, right? So that sort of discussion is something that social aspect needs to be considered. But nevertheless, as of now, the current state is that some farmers say, well, we brought in some clones from Ecuador, and I have some seedlings too because I went across to our partner in Ecuador and I collected some material from his farm and I brought it back home and I'm using it, right? That's a situation that happens as well. And a situation that happens across many countries where farmers can share seeds among themselves from the plants that they have, instead of perhaps using the recommended cultivars from their own home governments. So in Peru, there's also national veterinary hybrids. Perhaps we may consider them authentic, but if Trinitarios are the ones that came in from away, they're not that authentic, and various hybrids. So you can have a replacement of the real local indigenous germplasm with something else, right? And the farmers, the people must always ask themselves, do I want that something else, or do I want to use the original germplasm, the local one that can give me something that's more unique to the story that I want to craft, right? So in this whole nice region of Peru, we can go to Cusco and get Chuncho cacao. And Chuncho cacao has this exceptional flavor and aroma that is well sought after, right? And in the next department in Piura, we have Piura porcelana, which is also a wonderful cacao based on a different group than Criollo, but still with exceptional flavor, right? And then in Junin, there is cocoa that is not really Criollo, right? But can still provide chocolate of excellence. So you see in 2019, the cocoa from Junin had a strong cocoa flavor, moderate roast bitterness, astringency, and brown fruit flavors. That sort of description I leave up to John and his guys, they know how best to express that. Myself, when I taste chocolate, I know what I like, I know what I don't like, okay? To get all the nitty-gritty details like that, you need these experts, you need the people with a sensitive palate to say, yes, I can taste these things. And I believe what they say because these are the people who have been trained and know how to express these flavors properly. And the person who's buying it has to be given that story, has to be given that aptitude to decide, can I taste this difference and am I going to pay for that difference? Do I like it just for liking it and I'll buy it regardless of where it comes from, right? So let's see now some genetic studies for cocoa in Peru. Can we go to the next slide? So this is a work done by Zhang, a researcher with USDA ARS in Beltsville, Maryland. And they collected some samples from San Martin. You see the province up there. Okay. And they worked on mainly farm selection. So they say, okay, let's see this farm. Peru has all this wonderful germplasm, local germplasm, home of cacao and all that. Let's check out this farm and see what's the situation. So they collected about 220 different trees. They assessed the 27 expected parental for those trees with 15 microsatellite markers. And they found across the board, the entire farm diversity was from Upper Amazon hybrids with Trinitarium. Okay? So what does that mean? That means for this particular farm, instead of having local germplasm, local trees, genetic material that could have been very adapted to the local conditions, then we have something else coming in, right? Let's go now to the other slide. So this is a work that was presented again in the symposium in Peru in 2017 from Cespedes del Pozo and his team, okay? And they use a different marker system. They use a marker system called single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are now the marker of choice for persons dealing with genetic diversity in cocoa, right? So they use 94 SNPs and they assess 240 chuncho trees and they created 13 reference groups, okay? And below here, you would see the cluster diagram for these groups. So several things I want to bring to your attention here. One is that the original 10 populations of Motomaya still resides in the same sort of general relationship, okay? We have Prus, Iquitos, Nane, Guyana, Marañón, Amelanado, National. Maroon is a type of national. Elcitine, which in this case is representative of the Curare population, and Criollo. And then above Criollo, you would see Ukulele. Ukulele, represented by U, and on the map, you see different letters, is from the Contamina population. So you have the same 10 populations. We have it in the same general sort of relationships. But like some previous studies, they also identify additional groups, additional clusters, kind of different from what Motomaya had. Because when Motomaya did his work, he did not have this germplasm that was more recently collected, right? So as we explore more areas in South America, we have more chance of describing, obtaining valuable germplasm, right? Origin type germplasm, origin cocoa, specialty cocoa, heirloom cocoa, that either make new populations completely different or expand the genetic diversity, the variation of cocoa you could have within a group, within a population, within a cluster, right? So let's look at these little 3 groups. So these 3 groups, Madre de Dios, Beni, and Chuncho, were collected, Chuncho in Cusco province, right? Beni along the Beni River, and Madre de Dios, as you may have guessed it, along Rio Madre de Dios as well, right? And they all sort of related to Ukulele, the Contamina population. So there may be subgroups of Contamina, there may be true, real different populations. But if you look carefully at Beni and Madre de Dios, you see they're kind of close, right? And that's because the Beni River starts off in Peru, decides to walk across into Bolivia, right? Meets up Madre de Dios. Oh, sorry, it's the other way around. Just a minute. Let me check something here. Let me see. Yes, it's like that. Sorry, I'm not a Peruvian, so sorry. So the Madre de Dios River starts off in Peru, moves across into Bolivia, meets up the Beni River, and then moves forward down the road into the Amazon, right? So what we see is that the genetic groups, what we call the little groups of cocoa, they're sort of allocated along the riverine ways, the tributaries. And the tributaries that are connected can be related, but each can be different. So it's important to collect along the tributaries for cocoa. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Right? So the thing is that we have cocoa. We have cocoa in countries throughout the world, right? We have cocoa existing in natural state, it's wild and semi-wild. We have cacaos growing on farm. We have in national collections, we have in universal collections. And there are 2 universal collections, one in Trinidad, the ICGT, International Cocoa Gene Bank Trinidad, and one in Costa Rica called the IC3, right? And together they have about 3,500 varieties of cocoa. So cocoa itself as a plant, there's no risk of it being lost, okay? So then, should we still collect cocoa germplasm? Okay, so we did a survey to find out, hey guys, from all over the place, do this survey, let us know, what do you think? Would you collect cocoa germplasm? Should there be a need to do so? And if you're collecting it, why you would collect it and where would you collect it from? So, in the main, most people said, yes, we should collect cocoa, right? And these are the reasons. Let's go on to the next slide, please. Right? And, there's a huge response saying we should collect cocoa because places are being deforested in the Amazon and there'll be a loss of varieties that we have no knowledge about that could have potential use, that could be valuable. These are local germplasm being lost, right? There are areas that has not been explored. We need new material for research in terms of making more resistant plants, whether we want more climate smart plants, we want plants that are more resistant to diseases. Moniliasis or frosty pod is marching across Latin America and the Caribbean because it's already in Jamaica, right? Black pod, across the world, black pod is a problem, which is broom disease in Latin America. Cocoa pod borer, right? the list is on. Once cocoa is introduced, there's different pests that will come about. The only way to plan for the future is to breed for the future, right? And the only way we can breed for the future is to have varieties that we can use to the best. And the only way we can get those varieties is to characterize germplasm. And we cannot characterize germplasm if we do not know what we have. Where do we go to collect, right? So there are some people who said, okay, well, look, our natural cocoa is being replaced, so we have to collect it fast, right? And then, of course, people say, well, you have it in gene banks already. But, these areas has not really been collected from, okay? There's a lot of cocoa collected from this part of the world or from this part of the country. But, in the very wild areas, in the isolated areas, the areas that are hard to reach, in these tributaries that are supposed to have cocoa in it, no one's going up there. So let's go in those places, right? So let's go to the next slide, please. So what did these people tell us? Okay. In general, South America, Central America, okay, come as a shock to nobody, I would suppose, right? And they say, okay, well, let's have more collection from river systems in Colombia, Venezuela, and Brazil. Let's go to botanic gardens in Sri Lanka. I want to ask yourself why. It's because some of the very early high cruelty materials move across into Sri Lanka and they're distributed from there elsewhere, right? So it's possible that in Sri Lanka, some of the early cruelers that have been used is still present in Sri Lanka. One person said, there are several places, so a department is like a region, a large area in Colombia that has not been explored, because we have this problem, right? And one person said, but in Guatemala, you have unknown cocoa germplasm. And then, of course, from the survey, there were persons who says, in addition to looking for germplasm, I am really interested in partnering with HCP in this sort of project, right? Can I contribute to this database? Can we develop a joint project to try to identify and conserve this sort of unique germplasm that we have? Okay, so the report that we have here, as it stands, with the feedback we get from the persons across the board, and hopefully we continue feedback from the summit, if you pass on the word amongst yourself and from yourself, is that who wants to join in with HCP? Who wants to have a designation? Check out Anne, check out John, check out their website, and see what's going on, right? Because if we want to conserve local germplasm, we cannot have an on-farm conservation if the farmer is not compensated for keeping that germplasm, right? That's part of the dynamic. If we're using cocoa to do any sort of venture, and you've taken cocoa germplasm out of a country, and you're using it to do your high-tech biotech farmless cocoa making into chocolate, I would ask you the question, where did you get that germplasm from? Okay? And for proper germplasm movement, you're supposed to have, a sort of documentation, provenance as it will, an agreement on the proper use and valuation of this property, right? Of course, the query as who that property belonged to and how it should be used is one, World Cocoa Foundation for Biodiversity International, right? And we would like to see proper valuations being done. So the sort of laws that we have amongst countries, especially among countries that have valuable germplasm that then use to create, craft, or breed different or high-yielding varieties, or the use of germplasm without due compensation, that's something to be looked at as well. And that may be out of HCP's purview, but it's something that they will be treating with simply from the fact they are saying you can become an HCP designatee. And when you become an HCP designatee, then, we help you grow and produce your cocoa in the best way possible, right? Let's go on to the other slide. In terms of national collections, each country can have a national collection. And in that collection, that should be composed of varieties that are best adapted to the country, has the most disease tolerant, the best sensory experiences, the oldest trees, the ones that's closest to the introduced material, and high yielding, right? Whatever is the criteria, the unique composition of cocoa in that country should be conserved and be in use for that country, right? And the reason why is that you can always have chocolates crafted as country chocolates. So it's a Madagascar chocolate, it's a Tanzania chocolate. It all depends on the mix of cocoa that you have in that country, right? So for instance, if you have one farm in Tanzania that's making chocolate, right, as origin chocolate, and it's been sold, and it's Tanzanian chocolate, is it really a Tanzanian chocolate, or is it a specialty farm chocolate from Tanzania, right? And of course, different farms could have different sensory experiences in the chocolates that they craft. So you can have different markets coming in, right? Origin types chocolates. So you can have origin type chocolates by country, origin type chocolate by farm, origin type chocolate by the variety you have on your farm, right? These all make different dimensions in the products that you're crafting. So one person suggests, well, here what? Collect from all areas of all countries and find a flavor aroma, right? But that's just one dimension. We cannot just focus on flavor as high flavor. We have to focus on all the different taste experiences that can come in, the different ways in which we can exploit in a good sense, cocoa as a crop based on its performance, based on the fruits, based on the seeds, based on whatever it is, right? So we suppose, let's explore every river system within each river basin, within the cocoa growing regions of Central and South America, especially hard to reach areas. And in particular, these places were identified. For instance, the Napo Basin in Ecuador, Caqueta River in Colombia, Ucayali in South and Central Peru, right? And you see Santiago and Maruna, and Bolivia, Brazil, and Amazon, southwestern and southern Amazonia, right? So these are the general areas. And the key point to take away is that we can go to these places, we can get new germplasm, we can get new cocoa, we can get different cocoa. Let's go to the next slide, please. So what were the limitations for this particular type study? Well, it's a desk study, so it's based on the degree literature that they find. Historical records were lacking. Some items were unpublished, or there's no study being done. There were a few respondents, let us say, it's more than 30, but still reasonable, 50 something. Yeah. And not all countries were covered, right? And primary sources were limited for some countries. Okay. So we would like to bolster this information. If we go on to the other slide, which is the last slide, Regina, the last slide. Okay. So what's next? What's next, right? What next is just three main items to help farmers, to help local communities recognize their local indigenous germplasm that they have, and how best it could be a designated HCP type variety. For persons on HCP to collaborate with each other in moving their research forward to move the craft industry, if they want to call it the craft industry, origin chocolate forward in the best way possible. And of course, to publish this report so it reaches a greater sustained audience other than this summit. Okay, I'll pass you on over to Anne, who will conclude.
Unmute myself. As I've seen in the chat, people want to know how to get a hold of this review. As I said, we're in the beginning. We're just in the final stages of finalizing it. And so we have set up a page of our website, and I will, after this, enter it into the chat. But you can see it here, a page on our website where you can submit your email, and we will be emailing everyone as soon as it's available, and you'll be the first to know when it's available. It will be available on our website. And as Lambert noted, I've also put in a place on our website to contribute information. So if you have thought of information or think of information in the future that you would like to contribute, or are reading the report and see there's missing information, there's a section on our website to please be able to submit that and contribute. And then lastly, apply to the HCP. If you have beans, please, that you think are worthy, please go to our website and look at how to apply or reach out to me. And I will stop sharing.
Great. Thank you, Anne and Lambert. With such a broad, incredibly vast study, I'm not surprised we have very little time for questions, which I regret, but I've tried to stay active in the chat, answering some of those and as well in the Q&A. But just want to ask Anne and Lambert, if I understand correctly, that this is meant to be a living document to some extent, right? That through the website, we hope to continue to add information and continually update this to some degree. Is that correct?
Yeah, we haven't determined how exactly, because obviously it can't be happening every single month or year. But we're gonna, as we get new information, we'll just decide as it's needed to update it. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. We really believe it's going to be very useful, tremendously informative, but also a useful document to the industry from farmers across the value chain to preserve genetics and diversity and increase in the beautiful mosaic of flavors that we have in cacao. So thanks to everyone and for the incredible activity in the chat and the Q&A. Steve DeVries, you're a resource in among yourself, and Nana and others in the chat are super active, and thanks so much to everyone for the support and interest. Over to you, Regina. Thanks.
Thank you, John and Anne and Lambert. I mean, it's quite a lot to cover, and I gotta say, you really did a fantastic job of getting those key points in there in the hour and 15 minutes you were given. Every one of these panels has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts you put into this, and we will keep our eye up on when the full report comes out for sure. Thank you so much.